Yemen has an extraordinary cultural heritage. Centuries of history and civilization have come down to us through the monuments spread through this part of the Arabian Peninsula. Together with natural beauty, the cultural heritage attracts thousands of visitors every year and represents a major resource of economic development for the country's future. Driving 3 hours south of Sana'a, the capital, we come to Radà, which is in the center of a plain surrounded by rugged mountains. In the past, this rough and mountainous territory was an important center of the region, so that Sultan Amir of the Tarid dynasty decided in 1503 to build one of the most eclectic madrasas of the region, the Amiriya Madrasa. The madrasa is a jewel of Islamic art and architecture. It is conceived as a monumental rectangle 40 meters long, 23 meters wide, and 3 stories high. The first floor houses the prayer hall, which is small and well proportioned, with 2 central pillars supporting the 6 domes that rise 2 stories above. Every wall in the hall is richly decorated with elaborate and brightly colored tempera wall paintings, as well as stucco work. The paintings cover a surface of 600 square meters. They represent a unique example of Islamic decorative motifs, being a synthesis of 500 years of wall painting tradition in Yemen, with further input of elements from Indian artistic tradition. At the end of the 1970s, the monument was in a state of total neglect and was close to destruction. Earthquakes had damaged the structures and plaster. Water had flowed over the paint, causing heavy detachment. The crystallization of soluble salts disintegrated the plaster and paint layer. All the surfaces were blackened by layers of dust and lamp black. Extensive areas were covered with layers of whitewash. The entire hall showed such decay and neglect that it was difficult to discern the beauty of the paintings and make out the decorative scheme. This was the situation in 1970, when Selma al-Radi, a major name in Middle Eastern archaeology, decided to organize the restoration project that brought the Amiriya Madrasa back to its former splendor in 22 years. The work was funded by the Yemeni government, the Netherlands, and Italy. Once the structures were restored, the delicate problem of the wall paintings still had to be resolved. For this purpose, the CCA, Centro di Conservazione Archeologica of Rome, was called in 2000, as they had already been working in the Middle East in the field of monuments conservation. In the course of 3 years, 25 conservator restorers, assisted by local personnel, carried out the 10,000 workdays needed to restore 600 square meters of refined Islamic painting to its original magnificence. In tempera painting, the artists of the past used organic binders, such as glue, egg, or milk, to give body to the color and make it adhere to the plaster of the support. As the centuries go by, the organic binder deteriorates and no longer performs its function. In such a case, the color reverts to powder, as was the situation with the Amiriya paintings. Time also had its impact on this powdery color, for layers of dust and smoke from oil lamps and candles were deposited. Earthquakes, structural movements, and water infiltration then detached the plaster from the walls and caused irremediable loss of the original decoration. These are some of the problems the conservators had to face every day in the restoration of the Amiriya paintings. Through delicate operations of consolidation, cleaning, glazing, micro-stuccoing, and filling of lacunae, the painted surface slowly regained legibility and consistency, returning to shine in its decorative forms, even though it still bore the signs of time. All the surfaces were first dusted with sable or soft bristle brushes, and the deposits being removed were vacuumed up at the same time. Where whitewash thickly covered the paintings, it was necessary to remove it mechanically with scalpels, gradually reducing the thickness until it was all gone, usually softening the layer with packs of water, alcohol, and acetone mixed in equal parts. In the areas where there were denser layers of dust, the cleaning was performed with Wishob sponges, special restoration sponges made of a soft material based on synthetic latex. The combined action of dusting with a brush and using the sponge permitted the satisfactory removal of most of the deposits, ensuring a homogeneous and balanced presentation of the surfaces. In the areas affected by lamp-black deposits and carbonated layers, it was necessary to use repeated applications of a solvent mixture of ethyl alcohol, ammonia, acetone, and water, which was left to act on the surface through paper tissues for a few minutes. A highly delicate operation involved the consolidation of the paint layer and the layers of plaster. Where the paint was raised, the flakes of color were made to re-adhere to the plaster by impregnating them with acrylic resin diluted in water. Consolidation of detachments between the plaster and the wall support called for the use of a consolidating material based on hydraulic lime, which was injected with syringes. Supporting braces were applied to shore up the zones as they were consolidated, permitting the progressive anchoring of the surfaces and avoiding any collapse during the operations. The lacunae in the plaster were stuccoed with a mortar made of lime and gypsum. This operation restored integrity and homogeneity to the plaster, improving both its strength and aesthetic appearance. Pictorial integration of the lacunae was performed entirely with watercolors, distinguishing the areas that could be integrated by reconstructing missing motifs from those that could not be integrated because they were too large. Lacunae surrounded by well-conserved pictorial features were thus integrated by reconstructing the lost motif, leaving a slight undertone of the color so that the treated area could be recognized up close. In contrast, the larger lacunae were treated with a background color that blends with the general tones of the surrounding painting, without reconstructions, creating a uniform plane behind the surviving colors and allowing the forms to emerge. The treatment of the Amiriya Madrasa offered a rare opportunity to analyze the original techniques used by the artisans and artists. A raking light brings out the marks left by the measuring instruments on the fresh gypsum plaster. The curved lines of the compass and cord, the grids and preparatory drawing done with red ochre to give the artist a guide to follow while quickly painting the final composition. But here there is also imprecision, the mistakes and second thoughts that inevitably happen with a monumental system of this size. Parallel to the visual inspection, laboratory analyses were also performed to obtain a more specific identification of the constituent materials. All this information was made available in the final publication on the project. Yemen is rich in works of art, but has a highly fragile situation as regards their maintenance and conservation. The future of the Amiriya Madrasa rests on the possibility of carrying out a plan of periodical maintenance for the monument. For these two reasons, the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, General Directorate for Cooperation in Development, unhesitatingly responded to the request from the Yemeni authorities to finance a training course in wall painting maintenance for 6 local technicians. Organization and implementation of the course was assigned to the CCA. These 6 technicians had the opportunity to participate directly in the work, as well as following theoretical lessons, and they will ultimately look after the maintenance of the building and its paintings. The conservation program for the Amiriya Madrasa of Radà has ended. The paintings once again glow in all their magnificence, and the building is ready once again for worship and visitors. The destiny of this monument is now tied to the way it will be used and the way in which it will be maintained. This program involved a major commitment on many levels. From the technical and methodological standpoint, the treatment was performed without ever losing sight of the principles of preventive conservation, while also considering various requirements of the craft tradition and local culture, as well as the uses of a building for Muslim worship. From the logistico-organizational point of view, the Radà worksite offered a chance to carry out various initiatives, such as public information. Tourists, local and foreign authorities, and the media were welcomed throughout the project and given a tour of the worksite. This approach facilitated the growth of the general consensus that a project of this type greatly needs. From the viewpoint of social value, the treatment represented an event of great importance for the small community of Radà. The consistent use of local workers and materials and the presence of a group of Westerners represented for years a good income source for a very poor community. The fact that Radà, thanks to the presence of the restored Amiriya, has now become part of a tourist circuit represents an epochal change for the region, as the local populace quickly discovered. From the viewpoint of the project's impact at the national level, the training course for 6 technicians has provided a basic approach that can have a positive, practical impact on maintenance of the country's cultural heritage. As to the sustainability of the results obtained with the treatment, the publication of volumes in Arabic, English and Italian, and 18,000 postcards for sale on site to build a maintenance fund represent a simple mechanism that can be self-supporting. The book publication also responded to another theme of importance to the CCA, that of circulation of the scientific results of the treatment. The book provides technico-scientific information on the paintings and a summary of the practical experiences involved in the work. A conservation program of the magnitude and importance of that of the Amiriya Madrasa called for a substantial financial commitment. In this case, we experienced the generous participation of the government of Yemen, with support from the Social Fund for Development, of the government of the Netherlands and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Italy through the General Directorate for Cooperation in Development. Moreover, the project required a great personal and professional commitment on the part of all the personnel of the CCA, Centro di Conservazione Archeologica of Rome. Everyone contributed generously in view of a strong vocation for cooperation, demonstrating that the field of cultural heritage is not a place for competition, but an occasion for dialogue and collaboration between cultures and religions towards tolerance and peace.